And I have to, as we get started and, hope that maybe some people might join us or ask questions as we get rolling with our topic on, helping people figure out what it is you're really selling.
Right.
I have to show y'all a little trick that I did today that I learned from another blab last week. They said to remind you to look at your camera and not always down, because I'm trying to moderate too, but to draw a little sticky and put it right beside your camera on your laptop. So that's my little sticky that reminds me to hit record and to smile.
All
so
right.
that is, I'm looking at my little stick figure lady up there who's wearing her pearls, and she's ready to go.
She's ready to go.
Yeah, she is ready to go. So talking about, today we said our topic's going to be figuring out what it is you're really selling. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping people will jump in, and if they're not on Twitter and maybe they are lurking, maybe they'll sign up for Twitter real quick and jump on. We don't bite. We're real friendly. It's real easy to ask questions. We'll help you. And I'll say, tell a little bird. And for people to ask questions, they can hit the /Q and type in their question, and it will show up as a question. So I can kind of help moderate through that. But, I think the first thing is identifying what you're really selling. So how would y'all identify what it is that you're really selling?
Well, I think first of all, you have to decide if you're selling a product or you're selling an organization or yourself. Mm-hmm. If you're really selling something, or if you're branding, if you're trying to establish an identity, or if you want to turnkey sell something. And I think that's a lot of things clients don't it's hard for them to grasp the difference between the two.
Right. Well, and I think that what happens, especially like historically, and I think this is not necessarily a marketing problem, Janna, but in sales, there's been for so long the features, benefits, talk about the features and the benefits. And we actually get caught up in the capabilities and the features and the benefits. And it's, we're going to sell you the finest, I'll just give an example, because we were talking about this with the Make-A-Wish team. We're going to sell you the finest ATV that you can ride out of the country with. Well, you're not actually selling an ATV. You're selling the ability to get from A to Z. You're selling the ability to not break down. You're not actually selling the product. You're selling the benefits. Janna, you may have heard this, and I said this to Lisa, I think last week, but have you ever heard the story about sell the hole, not the drill?
Yes. Yeah,
I love this story. So please.
I heard the expression we talked about, but I haven't heard the whole story.
Yeah, share this again so we'll have it on record.
So, I mean, it's not exactly a story, perhaps, but just an example of, so I need to, I go to Home Depot and I say I need a drill. And there's 8,000 different drills, and you can sell me on, well, this one has these features, this capabilities, and stuff like that. Well, what I need actually isn't the drill. I need a hole.
Yeah, you need the end result.
Yeah, I need a hole, and the drill is how we get the end result. So what kind of hole I need, and how quickly I make the hole, or how cheaply I make the hole, that's what's going to determine what drill I need. Instead of, as salespeople, we do a really bad job sometimes of assuming people want the drill when what they need is the hole, and that we just focus on kind of selling the wrong thing.
True. And I think it kind of goes back to, what's your end game? What do you want after either you buy a product, you buy an ad, whatever, what do you want from that? So, mm-hmm. You have to kind of consider, because it depends. And sometimes I think what you initially think you want is not what the end result that you're looking for. Yeah. So that is really hard to, like we said, to explain to clients sometimes, or explain to anybody.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's almost like working in reverse. Instead of, starting at point A and think, okay, this is what I've got to sell, and I've got to make a hard sell with it, and I've got to just hit people over the head with my product so they know it's, it's as great as I think it is. You almost have to back up from their point of view and work backwards. And
Absolutely.
What you want their experience to be, and work backwards chronologically from there, I think.
Yeah, I had a client, and he was in the managed IT services. And so he actually, Janna, this is your area of expertise. He hired a marketing firm to create some expo and conference banners for him. And so I looked at the banners and stuff, and it said things like firewall, some protection, and multi-network, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I know that, okay, say if I have 5 to 7 employees, I've already talked to him. I know that I'm your ideal client. I don't know if I have those problems. I don't know if I need those things.
Yeah.
You're marketing something, and I'm not speaking that language. I know that having multiple employees with open access to internet puts your system at risk. I don't recognize any of those things. I don't see my problems. I don't see myself in them. It would be hard for me to choose you as the solution provider if I don't see myself in the problem. And that's where I think when it's figuring out what you're really selling is where people get wrapped up in the capabilities and the services they provide, and the semantics of those, instead of focusing on the problems people have and how you put yourself in context to those solutions.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to picture, like you were saying, you don't need to hit people over the head with stuff. You need to slow down and think about, if you put yourself in their shoes and when you're trying to sell, like we said, either an ad or a product, because I think the main thing you have to do is be authentic, no matter what you're selling, and let people know that you care about their end result, not just about, the sale. And then you have to, like Lisa said, what do you want? What do you want in the end? And then let's figure out who or what to do, to get that. So absolutely.
Right. And I think, since I'm social media, I think part of figuring out what your customer wants and figuring out what's valuable to that customer, social media is a really good tool that can be used. That a lot of people overlook that listening value a lot of times. And, you can have conversations one-on-one with people. You can watch, key phrases and key words, and you have the listening ability to be the fly on the wall, for something that you've got expertise in, whether it's, a service or an item, and you can have those conversations and listen and try to engage people. And I think it's also important too that, and y'all give me feedback, do you find this, that sometimes what's valuable to one customer, even though you're selling the same thing perhaps, what's valuable to one customer, it's a totally different set of values or issues that's valuable to another customer.
Yeah, I have to say, and I use this as a selling point, value is completely subjective. What one person finds valuable, not another person does. I mean, I'm going to go back to my Make-A-Wish team in here and use this example of, sometimes we get caught up on focusing on this great big wish and this great big wish reveal. And we assume, I'm using we as a part of their team, but we assume that that's what people care about. But when we do that, we're actually undermining all the incremental good feelings about team building and raising funds together all along the way. So, the value of giving to Make-A-Wish in this instance is not necessarily in the one big wish reveal. That's awesome. But it's there's value all along the way. And we shouldn't presume to know what that value is. Value is completely subjective. And so one of the things we have to do is we have to make sure that we remember when we're selling or when we're putting together the marketing campaign like Janna would, is to ask people, what do they find valuable? Why do they find it valuable? How do they find it valuable?
Yeah, because I think sometimes value is hard to define. And like you said, it just depends on the customer and it depends on their audience. And, it also depends, I think, if you're selling a good or a service. And when you're selling a service, sometimes that's hard to make tangible. So you have to kind of incorporate, all the different values of that because it's not so black and white. And like I was saying, I think last week I had like you were saying, Lisa, I had a client that didn't think it was valuable to them to be on social media until I showed them what their, counterparts, I'll say, were doing. And it's just, it's hard because its value is completely subjective, but you have to kind of hone them in and show them the value is related to their end game. And
right.
They will.
And the thing with social media too, it's not going away. I mean, here we all are on Blab. That's kind of a new tool, and it's such a fascinating tool that is open to anybody. It levels the playing field. And that's the beauty of social media. I think that's why I love it so much. It was, from a journalism background, I love being the first person to tell a story and to get the facts and to relay the facts, But with social media, I love working as a team also with businesses to put them on that platform and give their business a voice. But, finding out what you're selling, not only does it give that business a voice to reach their clients or potential new customers, it gives them ears to listen and to help figure out how to reach that and what's valuable to their customers and how that differs, and it can differ across the demographics. It can differ across, just thoughts and points of view too.
Exactly.
Right. Well, I'm going to take this question from Joshin. We're going to combine that name, Joshin 4. He says, do you believe in selling or educating a customer? What's the difference in the approach? And I'd love for you ladies to talk about your experience here, but selling right now, selling has transitioned into helping people buy. Selling is helping people buy you. And in order to sell someone, what selling is now is articulating your value in someone else's currency. In other words, articulating why you're valuable to someone else in a way that they find valuable. And we have to get out of the notion of thinking that we know best and ask those questions and understand what, one, somebody finds valuable, but then two, what currency do they assign to that? No one's going to give you what they find valuable, their time, their resources, their money, if their currency, if they don't have a way to put that into context or return that value or spend that or whatever. So selling
and sometimes they don't know until you give them the solution, until you're able to clear the windshield, so to say. Sometimes they don't even realize what you have to offer is such value to them.
And it's not even the education so much. I'm sorry, Janna. It's not even the education so much now because most people can find out anything they need on the internet. This is one of the reasons why selling has shifted so much. We can find pretty much everything we need to know on the internet. However, by use of social media and marketing, what we need to do is to give people the insights, not just the education, but the insights as to what it's like to do business with us, what our values are, how our values align with your core purpose. And that's a big shift. It's not selling on the features and the benefits anymore. It's giving people the insights as to what it's like to work with you because they can figure all the other stuff out on their own.
Exactly. And I think too, it kind of goes both ways. When he said about, do you educate your potential customer? I think they're going to educate. In order for you to educate them, they need to educate you, and you need to bring about their business or what they're trying to sell. It's one of the reasons I said the first thing I do is send a questionnaire to potential customers because, you can throw out all of this. This is what we need to do, kind of pat thing. But if you're not educated on what their true need is, then you can't educate them on what their next step is. So absolutely.
Yeah. And Lisa's mentioned this a couple times, and it's so huge. It's listening. Listening is a big part of selling. Listening is a big part of marketing and social media. It's listening to people. I actually, I blog every week, and I have so many endless stories about how we don't ask the right questions and how we don't listen. And if we just do that, customers will actually give you everything you need to know to sell them, to help them buy if you just listen. One of the story I'll just share with you quickly is I tell a story about when I go to Home Depot. So my husband was out of town. I've been saying I want to build rope swings in this big giant oak tree in our front yard. And he built something and it didn't work. And so I was like, I'm going to build a rope swing. Kids, Mama's going to show you how to get it done. So I go to Home Depot and I walk in and here's this big guy, the big orange Earl. His name was Earl. And he said, hey, how can I help you? And I said, Earl, I need some rope. And so when I tell the story, I ask the audience, what do you think the question was that Earl asked me when I said, I need some rope?
What do you need rope for?
Yeah. What are you building?
Okay, so from the two of you, you get an A+ because you get the answer right. Most people say
we're smart that way.
Yeah, sometimes. Most people say, what kind of rope do you need? Well, that's not what Earl asked me. If I had known what kind of rope I needed, I would have gone and asked Earl for that kind of rope. Earl asked me, what are you going to do with the rope? And so I said, I'm going to build a rope swing. And so Earl said, okay. And he asked me a whole series of questions. And so he asked a question that solved my bigger problem. He wasn't going to sell me a rope. He sold me a rope. He sold me a board. He sold me a plan on how to get it done too. And it was because he asked the right question. Now, if he had said, what kind of rope do you need? Do you need poly braided rope or natural fiber rope? I would have guessed. I would have said, oh, I need poly braided rope. And he would have taken me the poly braided rope. And then I would have been on my own to figure things out from there. And I might not have accomplished my goal. But guess what? I go to the same Home Depot. And who do I look for every time I go to that Home Depot?
He built some brand loyalty there.
Yeah.
Well, he did. That's true. Yeah. You're a returning customer.
Well, going back to James's question on the in selling or educating a customer, I think, James, it's, the educating the customer is really part of the selling process. It's, for a lot of products or services, it's part of that education. It kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, that sometimes your potential client might not even realize what they need and why you can be so valuable to them. And I think it's important to remember that, it goes back to the relationship too, and listening, a lot of things that we've touched on, but the relationship and the listening and being willing to spend that time to do a little education and not just shoving your services or your product in their face.
Yeah, great. And the other thing, I was looking at this question from Evoy. I think, I create flower art looking to become the flower artist. That goes back, and thank you for that, because that goes back to what we said about what are you selling. Sounds like he's, or she is selling themselves and their branding and who they are. And we talked.
That is Mr. Wonderful. I'm going to take it. It's a man, since it's Mr. Wonderful.
So there you go. Okay. Oh, good.
And if y'all, thank you for joining us. And if you don't mind hitting the little button over on the left that says tell a little bird, it'll let people know that we're here and we're still chatting, and we're open to take your questions. And James just says, I agree. I know Apple had the approach of educating instead of selling, because the mindset of selling means taking or talking to the customer about all the cool features. Educating is more focused on how it will impact their lives. Yeah. Which goes back, there's a big buzzword in business, and it's customer experience. And you'll see all kinds of, on Twitter, the hashtag CX. And I know Customer Experience Day is coming up in a couple of weeks nationally. And, it's all, everything that the three of us do, I know, ties into that customer experience. And it's, your Home Depot story, Shawn, is a perfect example of customer experience, and it's people who care, and it makes customers who care.
Yeah, because it's sorry. I was just going to say real quick. Even driving up to the drive-through, we have a thing about customer experience. It can be something that small or something huge, but it's about how they sell you a burger and how they put it together well. You have good service. They handle your money. It's the same thing. It's all about how they make you feel, and do you trust them, and will you come back, or will you say, no, I'm going across town next time. But it's that basic. I think sometimes, when you're selling anything.
Well, yeah, and what you're selling. So let us help you figure out what you're really selling. The bottom line is you're selling an experience. You're selling an experience of buying something. You're selling an experience of being educated on something. You're selling an experience of, from the moment someone hits your webpage to they check you out on social media to their first interaction with you. And most importantly for people to remember now is that selling goes on before you actually ever even know a customer is lurking or has a need, which is why social media presence, digital personality, and the stuff that Janna does in marketing and setting you up is so hugely important. Never, I think, and y'all can disagree with me if you want, but I think never have sales and marketing been ever so closely aligned with their mission, and one building something that the other hands off to an activity. It's really, really, really close right now. But I think the actions are different. But you have to get it right and understand you're selling experiences first and foremost in order to make people happy and make people
and back. I think one of my clients who I love working with always says, when sales go down, people think marketing needs to go down. That needs to go away. He's like, when sales go down, that's when your marketing goes up. And I love, that it's just sometimes what people don't put together, but it's so important to remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's why, we've talked before too about the silos in business and the breaking down of the silos. That's not the way it works anymore, which goes back to, the listening and figuring out what it is you're really selling. And if you've got salespeople, who are on the front lines and they're talking one-on-one with the customers, it's important for them to report back and talk with the people who are doing the marketing for the company. There needs to be a constant conversation going on. Yeah. And social media works hand in hand with both. But there needs to be that constant education within the company about what's valuable to the customer. How do we reach and increase the customer's experience? And it takes both, the people on the front lines and the people behind the curtain too.
And it's actually, we call it a selling organization. I just think it's so crazy, having had a lot of experience in, enterprise size business, and then, work my way to mid-size and small business too. If you're only training your salespeople to sell, to provide great customer experiences and to promote opportunities to your customers, it's like having a car and only inflating one tire. You're not going to get where you're going really effectively or efficiently. Why not train everyone on how to recognize customer experiences, deliver customer experiences, promote customer experiences, to build advocates and make a strong selling organization? You're missing the boat if you're only training salespeople, or if you think salespeople are the only ones that can and should sell in your organization.
Absolutely. It gets back to listening too, like we said, all the time.
Yeah. Well, and that's, the team approach and getting everybody, or at least those who, depending on the size of the organization, but if you have people in your organization and your company who are passionate and they're good writers, giving them the reins of ownership, where social media is concerned, to contribute toward that.
Oh, absolutely.
Is such a valuable tool for customers. And, again, it's the ears out there figuring out what it is you're really selling. And, for me, I'm selling a service. And so I'm constantly asking myself, what's valuable to my customer? And with the changes in the social media platforms, that often it's ever evolving and it's very fluid, and I have to reevaluate that all the time, but one of the biggest things, I'm not selling social media marketing services. I'm selling you your time back. I'm selling you lack of worry. I'm selling you a shorter to-do list. I'm selling you my knowledge and education. That's really, I have to find out which one of those, if all of them, or which one is most important to who I'm talking to and who, what they value.
Yeah, and you're selling the networking component too. I've had 3 people in the last, I was in Nashville this week, and I had so many people say, I want to do social media. I don't have time. I want to, sit down and look over my ad budget. I don't have time. So exactly. You're giving them that back, whatever marketing component. Yeah. The other thing is, as far as, as far as social media goes, the other component is that it's great for, you were talking about employees owning things. I mean, owning it, part of it. I have a client who recently got on Facebook a few months ago, and they're sort of owning it, and they're taking it and they're writing it and they're posting, and it's great because they all live in different cities, but they're the same company. So, it's great that they can kind of interact and know what's going on by hitting a button and typing. So I agree.
All right. Do we have any more questions? I think we've had Sam join, and I'm trying to see Kenny maybe. Let's see, James.
Yes.
I know an end goal for marketing is word of mouth. Yes, where the customer begins educating and sharing on their own, and therefore, becoming a brand advocate. So what do you think about an incentive or incentive programs, Janna?
Absolutely. I mean, word of mouth, and I call it third-party endorsement. It is so valuable. Word of mouth, and it goes into the customer experience, because you probably, Tom, would tell, somebody was going to your Home Depot and you say, I don't know who to talk to. You'll say Earl. I mean, it's.
Well, how many times I've told that story? I've blogged about it. It's been shared on Twitter. I've given it in speeches. I probably, the reach of that one story is probably, 50,000 people.
Yeah. And I think that's what we don't realize. We were saying that you might be selling before you realize you're selling. You might continue to be selling and you don't even realize it, because your customer or your client had a great experience and shared it, and they're going to recommend you. So absolutely. I mean, I think, as long as they have a good experience and you have a deliverable for them, they're going to continue to talk well about you through word of mouth and refer you. And that will sell itself. So.
Well, and as far as incentives go too, it's really interesting. I think as far as an incentive goes, it depends on if you're a business to consumer or business to business channel. I've worked for a large office product company, and our competitor was big on upfront rebates and, those kinds of incentives. But honestly, the biggest incentive people have for becoming an advocate is to look smart and to feel good about giving a good referral. That's why we do it on Facebook. That's why we do it, tell people, where'd you get, here's my hairdresser. Here's our house cleaner. Here's a babysitter. Here's a car mechanic, all those different types of things. It's about us. We want to feel good about, leveraging our trust and our trust currency with someone by making a good referral. And that is why people advocate. And it's, I would even dare say that it's even more important sometimes, depending on the type of incentive referral you have, that you reinforce the good experience someone is sort of leveraging for you.
Exactly. Because you want to make a good referral if you make the referral, and that ties in with the incentive. I agree.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
Yeah. Well, welcome, Victoria. And we had somebody else.
Reed Knox.
Pull a first name. Reed.
Oh, okay.
Nice to have you here. Do y'all have any, are there any more questions from anybody who's joined us? We'd be happy to field it. If you have questions about finding out what it is that you're really selling, what you do with that knowledge, so what do you do? Once you figure out what it is that you're truly selling, what's valuable, to your potential customer and that client, what do you do with that knowledge?
You figure out who you're trying to sell to and how you reach them. And that ties in with audience and it ties in with, the method and whether you want to sell, like we said, third-party endorsement, whether you want to sell to the masses, whether you want to sell, to people in their homes. But you have to figure out the audience and how to reach them once you know your product.
Yeah. And I think really important is once you figure out why you're valuable is you use that to put yourself in the context of how you relate to someone. You put that into context as to what someone's problem is. Empathy is so huge in selling. It's understanding why someone has a problem. For you, Lisa, it's understanding the day-to-day challenges of a small business owner and understanding that they think they don't have time to do this, but yet it's not an option to use social media to leverage for their business. So understanding why you're valuable and what you're really selling, and then put that in a context of someone else's reality and that's how you sell it is, I can solve this problem for you. Here's how we're going to get it done, especially in terms of small business owners. Small business owners are thinking about cash flow. The first question is, how can I pay for it? And then how am I going to get it done?
Is it going to, what's my ROI? What's my return of investment? And social media is one of those things when I say, when I figure out what it is I'm really selling, it's not social media marketing. It's the time I'm giving business owners and managers back time to concentrate on what it is they're passionate about, why they're in business. But the thing is with social media, I've seen a saying somewhere that I kind of like. It's a little fluffy, but your return on investment of social media is your business going to be there in 5 years? Yes. I mean, social media is not going away. It's a very valuable tool. People are using it for research. Most people are finding out information about your company, your product, your services online before they ever connect with you at all and begin, what may be what you consider the beginning of your sales funnel. But they've already been researching and looking at you online, gathering opinions on, your corporate values and how you appear and what your voice is. I give businesses their voice back. And I make sure that they're listening and engaging. That's what I do for my clients so they can be busy about running their business and meeting with their clients hand in hand, eye to eye, and hitting the pavement, because it all goes hand in hand. It doesn't replace anything else. It goes hand in hand, and it's just another tool in their toolbox that I know how to use and help, and do it for them. But I mean, the thing is with social media and what's valuable, Pew Research just came out with some new information, and I put it out yesterday, but 71% of internet users are on Facebook right now. 70% of those visit at least once a day, and 40% of them visit multiple times a day. And, whether you love it or hate it, Facebook, for as many changes as there have been, it's not going anywhere. No. And a business needs a presence there, so it's, again, it's finding what's valuable to them, but sometimes they don't even know how valuable you can be until there is that education process too.
Yeah. All right.
So, anything, I know you've got to go, Shawn, and get back to Make-A-Wish, and thank you very much, and good luck the rest of the day with them. I know that's a powerful group.
Oh, they're tremendous. And Janna, it's great to see you down there. You're down below. I don't know where I am on the squares.
The Brady Bunch. All right. Thanks, Shawn. And we'll see you next Thursday at 12:30 Central Time.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you later. Bye.
Bye. Janna, do you have anything else to add or questions? I'm not seeing any more questions from our viewers right now.
I think I just want to add that, we talked about this before, and I know some of y'all got on it maybe after we talked about it, but just when you're talking about selling something, really know what you want to sell. If you want to sell your brand, if you want to sell yourself as an expert, if you want to sell a product today or tomorrow in your store. And also, one of the most valuable things, hopefully, that we as marketing professionals and social media professionals and communications people can do is help you figure out how to reach the people you want to sell to that will respond to you the most in a long-term way. And so, it depends on what you're selling, but there are ways to reach the people you want to sell to. And that's what we try to do best. And we hope to save you time and maybe money and get a return on your investment the most. So hopefully, some of this information will help, navigate through all that process.
Right. Absolutely. And that's, part of figuring out what it is you're really selling, answering those questions, what's valuable to your client, and then using that information for marketing purposes and knowing how to talk to your potential clients and what avenues to use, which is getting into the marketing part of it. But I think we'll wrap up today. Do you have anything else?
Thank you all for joining us, and we'll look forward to next week. And, come back. It's going to be fun.
So, and if anybody ever has any thing that they want us to talk about, any advice on topics, we'd love to hear it. I'm at LMCB Social, and you can just tweet me and let me know. So, and Janna, you want to give your handle?
At HerbCom, capital HERBCOM. Helpful.
All right. Bye, Janna. See you later.